We'll study and discuss some philosophy at the foundation of this uh, yoga system named Bhakti Yoga. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Rayanam namaskritya naram jaiva narottamam devim sarasvatim vyasam tato jayamudirayat. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the very means of conquest, one should first offer respectful obeisances unto the personality of Godhead Narayan, unto Narayan Rishi, the supermost human being, unto Mother Sarasvati, the goddess of learning, and unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Nashta prayeshva bhadreshu nicham bhagavata sevaya bhagavat utama shloke bhaktir bhavati naistiki. So we're studying from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 8, entitled Manifestation of Brahma from Vishnu. We're on text 23, Chapter 8, Canto 3 of Srimad Bhagavatam. We're here with Ananda, Benjamin, Samantha, Gaetano, and Rosa. And online we have some participants, visitors from Europe, Anandini there in Switzerland, and Sylvan from England. And so, yeah, welcome. All right, so this Srimad Bhagavatam, it's like the follow-up book to Bhagavad Gita. Bhagavad Gita is the book from the ancient Vedas, ancient India, that's probably most well known. And this is the follow-up book to that. And Srila Prabhupada, our primary spiritual guide, he instituted each morning to hear from this transformational, transcendental literature, Srimad Bhagavatam. So we'll study some Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 8, text 23. We'll start with the Sanskrit words responsively. Mrinala, Gorayata, Shesha, Bhoga, Paryanka, Ekam, Purusham, Shayanam, Panata Patrayuta, Mordha, Ratna, Dubir, Hatha, Dvanta, Yuganta, Toye. And I'll do one line at a time. Minala Goraya Tashesha Boga. Aryanka Ekam Pusham Shayanam. Anatha Patrayuta Murdharatna. Jubir Hatha Dvanta Yuganta Toye. Minala Goraya Tashesha Boga. Aryanka Ekam Pusham Shayanam. Anata Patra Yutamordharatna. Jubir Hatadvanta Yuganta Toye. Minala Goraya Tashesha Boga. Paryanka Ekam Purusham Shayanam. Anata Patra Yutamordharatna. Jubir Hatadvanta Yuganta Toye.
Tvanta Yuganta Toya.
If anyone else would like to lead the recitation of the verse. Minala Guryata Sheshaboga.
Ekam Purusham Sayanam.
Aryanka Ekam Purusham Shayanam.
Patrayuta Murdaratna.
Panata Patra Yutamordha Ratna.
Vipirata Dvanta Yuganta Toye.
Tubir Hata Dvanta Yuganta Toye.
Minala Guraya Shesha Boga.
Minala Goraya Shesha Boga.
Ekam Purusham Shayanam.
Aryanka Ekam Purusham Shayanam.
Anata Patrayuta Murdharatna.
Anata Pataya Yutamordha Ratna.
Bir Hata Dvanta Yuganta Toye.
Tubir Hata Dvanta Yuganta Toye. Would anyone online like to lead the chanting of the verse?
Mrinala Gorayanta Shesha Boga.
Minala Gorayata Shesha Boga.
Aryanka Ekam Purusham Shayanam.
Paryanka Ekam Purusham Shayanam.
Anata Patrayuta Murtaratna.
Panata Patra Yutamordha Ratna.
Yubir Hatutvanta Yuganta Toye.
Tubir Hatadvanta Yuganta Toye. Okay, we'll study the word meanings responsively. Minala,
Mrinala.
lotus flower.
Lotus flower.
Gora,
Gora.
white all over.
White all over.
Ayata, gigantic. Sheshaboga,
Shesha Boga.
body of Sheshanag.
Body of Sheshanag.
Paryanke,
Okay.
on the bed. Ekam,
Ekam.
alone. Purusham,
Sham.
the supreme person.
The supreme person.
Shayanam,
Shayana.
was lying.
Was
Anatapatra,
Anatabatra.
umbrella of a serpent hood.
Umbrella of a serpent hood.
Ayuta,
Ayuta.
bedecked with.
Bedecked with.
Mordha,
Morda.
head.
Head.
Ratna,
Ratna.
jewels.
Jewels.
Dubi,
Dubi.
by the rays.
By the rays.
Hatadvanta,
Dvanta.
darkness dissipated.
Darkness dissipated.
Yuga anta,
Yuga anta.
devastation.
Devastation.
Toye,
Toye.
in the water.
In the water.
Translation. Brahma could see that on the water there was a gigantic lotus-like white bedstead, the body of Sheshanag, on which the personality of Godhead was lying alone. The whole atmosphere was illuminated by the rays of the jewels bedecking the hood of Sheshanag, and that illumination dissipated all the darkness of those regions. There's no purport to that text, so we'll read the next text, text 24. Preksham Kshipantam Harito Paladre Sanjabra Niver Urukma Mortna Ratno Dadhara Shadi Samanasya Vanaswajovenu Pujan Gripangre. The luster of the transcendental body of the Lord mocked the beauty of the coral mountain. The coral mountain is very beautifully dressed by the evening sky, but the yellow dress of the Lord mocked its beauty. There is gold on the summit of the mountain, but the Lord's helmet, bedecked with jewels, mocked it. The mountain's waterfalls, herbs, etc., with a panorama of flowers, seem like garlands, but the Lord's gigantic body and his hands and legs, decorated with jewels, pearls, tulasi leaves, and flower garlands, mocked the scene on the mountain. Purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. The panoramic beauty of nature which strikes one with wonder may be taken as a perverted reflection of the transcendental body of the Lord. One who is therefore attracted by the beauty of the Lord is no longer attracted by the beauty of material nature, although he does not minimize its beauty. In Bhagavad Gita, chapter 2, text 59, it is described that one who is attracted by Param, the Supreme, is no longer attracted by anything inferior. So before we continue our discussion, I'm going to recite a few more mantras. My mood in reciting them is that whatever I may speak, I'm authentically, in an authorized way, representing the spirit and essence and substance of Srimad Bhagavatam and of Srila Prabhupada, who's giving us this ancient literature, Srimad Bhagavatam. Om Jnanatimirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshuranmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Svayamupakadamayam Derati Svapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Utapadakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavam Cha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sakanaratnatan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Pujana Saitan Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sakna Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitams Cha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagat Pate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radhakanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurange Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Rishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchikalpatuyubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyeva cha Patitanan Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gavani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Desha Tarine Srimad Bhagavatam Canto 3 Chapter 8 Text 23 and 24. Brahma could see that on the water there was a gigantic lotus-like white bedstead, the body of Sheshanag, on which the personality of Godhead was lying alone. The whole atmosphere was illuminated by the rays of the jewels bedecking the hood of Sheshanag, and that illumination dissipated all the darkness of those regions. The luster of the transcendental body of the Lord mocked the beauty of the Coral Mountains. The Coral Mountain is very beautifully dressed by the evening sky, but the yellow dress of the Lord mocked its beauty. There is gold on the summit of the mountain, but the Lord's helmet bedecked with jewels mocked it. The mountain's waterfalls, herbs, etc., with a panorama of flowers, seem like garlands, but the Lord's gigantic body and his hands and legs, decorated with jewels, pearls, tulasi leaves, and flower garlands, mocked the scene on the mountain. Hare Krishna. And thanks for joining. Damayanti, George, Danielle, Rukmini, hello, Sylvan, and Nandini. We're here with Samantha, Benjamin, Ananda, Garuda, also known as Gaetano, and Rosa. Yeah. So this, certainly a theme here is the beauty of nature. The beauty of nature. Everyone, practically everyone, is like attracted to the beauty of nature. It's sattvic. Because like yes, everyone, all the nature, everything's aligned with God's creation. Whereas we get into like like um, human dealings and societies, and as we've all experienced, and it could get very alienated. That's why, like, we say, like, yeah, yeah, where do you sense more of the beauty of God's creation, nature? Oh, yeah, out in the forest, the streams, maybe the desert, compared to, let's say, Wall Street in the middle of New York City. It's like, oh, this doesn't seem so. Okay, because there's different modes there. It's different modes. So, um, all right. So the beauty of nature, and then there's really two types of natures indicated here: spiritual and material. Um, I remember this was about a decade ago, and I was invited. I was actually staying at the home of Ananda Goldstein Demerla in, was it Longmont?
Yeah.
Longmont, Colorado, about 10 years ago. And I was invited to give a keynote presentation at that for the staff of a hospital in Golden, Colorado. In Golden, Colorado, it was a veterans hospital, and so we started the presentation. The audience was medical professionals, mostly doctors and nurses. And we started the presentation by asking them, okay, let's say someone comes to you and says, I've hurt my finger. So I said to the doctors and nurses, now in that simple phrase, my finger, there are two entities. There's the finger, and there's the owner of the finger. So I asked them, who are you treating? The finger or the owner of the finger? There in Golden, Colorado, I asked. And they sat there kind of in stunned silence. After a few moments, the director of the hospital system up there in the Veterans Hospital, he said, oh, well, David, Dr. Wolf, that's a simple question. Who are we treating, the finger or the owner of the finger? That's a simple question. He said, but we've never really thought about it. I said, yeah, it's an important question. Because, there's no healing potency in the finger. The finger essentially is made of the same as this terrazzo floor or the window shade. It's dead matter. There's no healing potency in the finger. The healing potency is in that irreducible of consciousness, irreducible quanta of consciousness that animates, that is the owner of the finger, that animates the body. So that was the beginning of our presentation there. And okay, so that indicates, okay, two types of energy: the finger or the body, dead matter, and then that atomic unit of sentience that energizes or activates the dead matter. So it's the theme of Bhagavatam. On its own, dead matter does not have volition, does not have free will not act. Just like, okay, so there's the cushion, the Kashi Poo's there. The cushion.
The Kashi pose.
The Kashi Poo's. Yeah, we got a whole collection of Kashi Poo's. That's Sanskrit for Aranya Kashi Poo, right? So the cushion, it's not thinking, oh, I wish I was in that room over there. I wish I could just move to the other side. No. But now we might say, okay, I want to take that cushion and put it on the chair. I want to take that cushion, take it outside. Okay, because we're so matter moves because of the conscious application of conscious entities. So, this gets into self-realization and identity. In our book, Relationships That Work, The Power of Conscious Living, right at the beginning, we start with a quick thought exercise. We can do it now. The exercise is, imagine that you're looking at a photo of yourself from when you were 5 years old. Now, when you look at that photo, do you say, who is this person? Who is this stranger? No. I say, oh, that's David when I was 5. I mean, with my little red wagon. Yeah, that's David when I was 5. Right? You say, that's Benjamin when I was 5. That's Samantha. That's Gaetano when I was 5. Now, it's understood from basic science, basic chemistry, there's not one molecule, not one atom in the body now that was there at 5. We can say, well, the body grew. Actually, no, that's not true. It's not like the cells and the molecules got bigger and bigger and bigger. Then they became teenage cells. No. All the parts are completely 100% changed. There's not one physical particle that's the same. Still, there's some constant identity. I call David, you call Samantha, you call Rosa. So that indicates it's like an empirical logical evidence that the self is something completely non-material. And this Srimad Bhagavatam, this whole bhakti yoga, it's about conceptual and experiential discovery about what's the nature of the owner of the finger, of that irreducible quantum of consciousness that continues on as the body changes from dehinosmim yata dehe komaram yovanam jara tata dehantara praptir dhiras tatranamuyate. That's a text from the ancient Sanskrit Bhagavad Gita. As the embodied soul continually passes in this body from childhood to youth to old age, the soul similarly passes into another body at the time of death. The self-realized person is not bewildered by such a change. So, yeah. So what's the nature of the self? So just like there's a whole world related to this body, there's a whole world related to this body, and we have our activities and our relationships and our financial life, and we have our recreation and our career. Okay, so I'm just saying that we're opening the door to the possibility. It makes sense that there's a whole world that's natural for the soul to relate in. To relate in how, in a sense, how could there not be, considering that the soul is the superior energy? By superior, I mean like, again, the cushion or the chair, it's inferior in consciousness, and we can act on it. It doesn't act of its own volition. And the body, we can think of like, when the body dies, more precisely, the body's already dead. I'm not meaning to be morbid here, but just like if I'm driving a car, I'm not the car, but the car appears alive when the driver's inside. But essentially, the car is always made of dead stuff, rubber, metal, plastic. Simply the body's made of dead stuff. It appears alive because we're inside. So, okay. So it's described in the Bhagavad Gita, Yehi sam sparshabat sparshajaboga dukayona evite ajantavanta nate shuramate Buddha. That a wise person, a truly spiritually wise person, spiritual wisdom, means that I'm not seeking my pleasure. I'm not seeking my fulfillment in anything which is temporary. The nature of the body is temporary, just like we had our toddler form, that's gone. Okay, and then maybe we have young adult, and in our 20s and like that. Just yesterday, I had a phone conversation with my sister, Carol Wolf. We hadn't spoken for a few months, and she was talking about different relatives, and she was speaking like this relative who was very dear to us from childhood, and she still has a lot of contact. I have not so much contact, but such and such relative in his 80s, he can barely walk now. Because he falls, and then this other relative who has some serious surgery coming up. And my sister reflected, and she said, "Oh, it's wow, everyone's experiencing the effects of old age." She said, "Except, of course, for me." I said, "Yes, yes, you and I, we're just observers who are unaffected." Yes, yes. So, but she's seeing it, yeah. But everyone else, David, they're experiencing the effects of old age in severe ways. And there's one really elderly and late 90s. The physicality's still there, but she like doesn't even recognize her own children. And so like the deterioration on that dimension. Okay. And so we spoke a bit. Janma Mitra Dravati Dukadoshanu Darshanam. Dukadoshanu Darshanam. What that describes is that real wisdom is to understand that it's unnatural. It's unnatural for the spirit soul, which is intrinsically deathless, made of such Chidananda Vigraha, that our constitutional nature is eternal, full of bliss and cognizance in ever blissful spiritual form. And to be kind of forced to be trapped in a body that's subject to birth, death, old age, and accompanying miseries of material life related to eating, sleeping, mating, defending. That's wisdom. And then to act on that wisdom means to dedicate our lives to realizing who we are as not the body, as spirit soul, not to neglect the vehicle, to take care of it just like we take care of a vehicle. It serves us on our journey. And 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 to live our life for that joy, that happiness that'll never be ravaged by time, never be devoured by the snake of time. And so it's very, as we started here, it's very natural to appreciate nature, streams like that. Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Ateva Bhavanaitene, Kim, he says, Yad Yad Vibhutimat Satvam Shimad Urjitam Eva Tatat Eva Vakachatvam Mamitam. So Ekam Sena Stito Jagat. And so he says that, okay, because in that part of Bhagavad Gita, Krishna is giving dozens of ways to realize God through nature, to appreciate nature. Just like you have your nature, you have your nature, we all have our natures. So where there's a nature, there's a person whose nature it is. So we can appreciate the streams and the sky and the surf and the sand. Oh, nature. So it's a natural question. Whose nature is it? So Krishna says, like, this is beautiful nature, appreciate that. He says, and all these mighty, beautiful, and glorious creations spring from but a spark of my splendor. So in caring, just like we might appreciate a beautiful, artistic, skilled painting of flowers or a landscape or a seascape, beautiful. Then we might naturally wonder, oh, who's the painter? Who's the painter? There's a person behind it. Interesting, right? Because if we see a beautiful painting of flowers, or a landscape, or a seascape, we say, oh, how did that painting happen? Oh, the wind blew, and by random chance, here's this beautiful painting. Do we assume that? No. We know, oh, there must be this genius painter. I'd like to get to know him. But then some people will see, because we know the actual flowers, the actual seascape, the actual landscape, it's far, far, far more beautiful than the painting. But we say, oh, but it just happened. Yeah, the wind blew, it just happened. Oh, all right. But then with more higher logic, we can say, oh, who's the artist? Who's the artist behind that? Who's the artist behind that? So Srila Prabhupada, in his purport here, he says in Bhagavad Gita 2.59, it is described that one who is attracted by Param, the Supreme, is no longer attracted by anything inferior. So Prabhupada's relating to what we often refer to as the higher taste verse. Vishaya vinivartante niraharasya dehinam raso varjam rasopyasya param drishtva nivartate. So Krishna is saying that. And this is basic, like in any program, if we want to change our habits to healthier habits, get rid of toxic habits. It's a basic, scientifically confirmed principle. Lots of research on that. Willpower is limited. As the saying goes, nothing inspires more confidence than the first 4 hours of a diet. Just letting that one sit there. Okay, some could say, for me, it's 2 hours. And it's like, oh, then there's that urge. So unless we have a higher taste, that's what Krishna's saying. We're not going to give up. We're not going to give up a lower taste that's kind of like maybe self-alienating, degrading for the self, unless we have a higher taste to replace it with. And so this process of bhakti yoga, it's designed for the soul to get the higher taste of spiritual nature and to awaken to our original joyful spiritual nature, just like in the analogy can be given. Say, let's say if there's a shadow of a building or a shadow of a person or a shadow of a tree. This analogy is also given in Bhagavad Gita, 15th chapter. Krishna talks about the reflection of a banyan tree on a pond. He talks about a tree with its branches down and its roots up. It's the same analogy as a shadow. So the shadow is real. The reflection's real in a sense. It's not like this is not real. The body's real. The illusion is if I think that I am the body, then that's illusion. Just like if I'm thinking I am the car, let's say all I do is, well, I take care of the car. I get it washed and I change the fluids. I make sure the tire, I mean, that's nice. We want to take care of the car. But let's say so an observer is like, oh, well, you haven't eaten in 3 days and you haven't had a bath or a shower in a month. You look terrible. No. I just got it detailed and look, I shined the hubcaps. Well, that's fine, but that's not you. So we can look at how much energy we give to nurturing and nourishing the car, not to be neglected. But what's it mean to nurture and nourish and really create fulfillment for the driver of the car, the spirit soul that inhabits the body? And so we might say for other species, all they do is 4 basic activities: eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. And that's what they do. Each species has its special gift and distinctive contribution in God's creation. And it's described, Kamasya Nendriya Pritir Labo Jivata Yavata Jivasya Tattva Jigyasa Natriyashchaya Karma Bhi, that Jivasya Tattva Jigyasa. To quote Teilhard de Chardin, we're not spiritual beings, we're not human beings having a spiritual experience, we're spiritual beings having a human experience. For spiritual beings having a human experience, the special opportunity is to inquire, who am I? What's the difference between spirit and matter? To inquire about Brahman, about what about these questions that other species, these questions that go beyond eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. Yeah. So this process of bhakti, and before we entered into our philosophy class and discussion, we chanted some mantras. Ananda led us in Jaya Radha Madhava. That song, it's a window to the spiritual activities of the soul. Just like the body has activities, so how could the soul, which animates the body, not have a whole world of activities? We're just inviting the question. Now, this is not a practice, process, or philosophy of, so be good now and then you die and go to heaven. We get to experience that higher taste while in this body, as Srila Rupa Goswami says, Ihayasya Harerdasya Karmana Manasagira Nikhilas Vapyavastasu Jiva Muktasa Uchyate. By using this body in the yoga process, which means using everything in devotional service to God, to the Supreme. Krishna is a name for God that means the all-attractive. By using this body, this mind, these relationships, this house, the car, the money in the bank account. Because in one sense we can say, it's nice realization. Oh, I'm not my body. That's nice. But then more complete is realizing, this isn't my body. It's not, I'm just renting. And so let me use the analogy given by A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami. It's like if we find a wallet on the street. So the material mentality is represented by, wow, $800 credit cards, I can really enjoy. That's material mentality. Now, let's say a mentality that's more noble than that. This is not my wallet. This is not my driver's license. These are not my $800. It's not mine. I will not touch it. There's something more noble about that. And that's called Palgu Vairagya, partial renunciation. And then the complete renunciation is we see, this is not my wallet. It's not my $800. It's not my credit cards. But it is someone's. It is someone's. Let me return it to the owner. It's for him to enjoy the credit cards and the cash. Doing that, then we feel most in integrity. It's like an analogy, but then take it out of the analogy. So all of the wallets belong to God. And bhakti yoga is cultivating the art and science and the consciousness of how to use everything, including our own mind, our words, our thoughts, in the service of Krishna, in the service of God. To the extent we do that, then we get the higher taste and we develop enthusiasm to live our life that way more and more, rather than living for shadow, unfulfilling pleasures that give more alienation and misery than actual happiness. So, as we mentioned, as we experienced, a cornerstone of this process of bhakti is chanting the names of God in every language, or in any genuine spiritual tradition. To chant the names of God is recommended as a process for purification of heart. And here's the thing, like, if our hearts aren't pure, we're giving ourselves no chance for actual happiness. If our hearts are filled with greed, lust, envy, then we give ourselves no chance for actual happiness. Right? When there's envy and jealousy and lust and toxic anger and greed. I say toxic anger because all of the emotions, including anger, have their healthy spiritual counterholes. And so, yeah, so So it's described, iti shata shakam nam nam kali kamashanashanam. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. That this mantra, this mantra composed of 3 names of God, arranged in a 16-word mantra coming from the timeless Vedas. This mantra is especially recommended for self-realization in this age. And there are other, to whatever extent this is not an all or nothing process, it's described in the Kramunasho state, Pratyabhayana Vijite, Svapamapya Siddharmasya Trayate Matobhaya. Whatever we do in this timeless process is for our eternal benefit. And the recommendation is to, like, give 100%, give 108%, so that we're no longer, after this body, we're no longer forced to take birth in another body that's subject to just the shadow reality and birth, death, old age, disease. So I'll read the text again, then I'll be glad to hear if anyone wants to ask any questions or share any comments or realizations, inspirations, challenges. So this is text 23 and 24 of Canto 3, Srimad Bhagavatam, Chapter 8. Brahma could see that on the water there was a gigantic lotus-like white bedstead, the body of Sheshnag, on which the personality of Godhead was lying alone. The whole atmosphere was illuminated by the rays of the jewels bedecking the hood of Sheshanag, and that illumination dissipated all the darkness of those regions. The luster of the transcendental body of the Lord mocked the beauty of the coral mountain. The coral mountain is very beautifully dressed by the evening sky, but the yellow dress of the Lord mocked its beauty. There is gold on the summit of the mountain, but the Lord's helmet, bedecked with jewels, mocked it. The mountains, waterfalls, herbs, etc., with a panorama of flowers, seem like garlands, but the Lord's gigantic body and his hands and legs, decorated with jewels, pearls, tulasi leaves, and flower garlands, mocked the scene on the mountain. So something I'm getting here is appreciate material nature and cultivate awakening to, because material nature is beautiful, mighty, glorious, and in an important sense, it's just the dull reflection of spiritual nature and spiritual activities, and to cultivate immersion in spiritual nature. Thank you all. Hare Krishna. I welcome at this time if anyone would like to share any comments or ask any questions.
I would like to share, thank you for your class today. Yeah, I think something that kind of was really kind of impact me, and kind of I went on like a whole like visualization process of, you were speaking about the pillow and dead matter, and
Yeah.
The pillow, not able to like move or even think about like what it wants to do, and then thinking about us and the what and our bodies essentially is dead matter, and the spirit animating the body. And when I heard that, I started thinking about, like, I looked out the window, I started looking at like a squirrel, and even the trees, and like seeing, even though trees may not look like they have that energy or spiritual energy,
Yeah,
where they
yeah.
are an entity, like
Yes.
really looking at like, without the spiritual energy occupying the tree is just a dead
Mm-hmm.
piece of wood, and then
Yeah.
it decays and things eat it. And also I've recently found these like scientists, these kind of scientist artists that were like hooking up these electronic nodes to like mushrooms and trees and like different plants.
Yeah.
And they would hook up these like synthesizers to them, and they were like receiving, so that the mushrooms and the plants and all these different organisms, they emit a pulse that is like it can be sporadic, and then it gets into patterns, and they were showing like through the synthesizer,
Yeah.
like sound, it was like they were showing that these entities are they viewed it as like communicating.
They communicate. They have. There's life there.
Yeah.
There's life there. Yeah.
Yeah, so I was like thinking about that, like in the context of like, yeah, it's like there's, and then even how plants respond to different kinds of music, that's been,
Yeah.
people have been messing with that for a while, and seeing like, the effects that
Yeah.
the plant growth on different sound vibrations, so that not only what they receive, they also are emitting. So there is like really hard evidence that there's like, there's it's alive,
Yeah.
there's this entity or energy,
Yes.
that's being exchanged there, and it's not just dead matter. Looking at that, so I was appreciating that this morning, like
Yes.
thinking about that. And then also we Krishna has blessed us with two mini zebu cows. We the whole arrangement, we're doing a little bit of trade, but it's pretty minimal for, the cows were for sale, and we ended up doing, some nice trade, working on a farm,
So
doing some
you
labor.
have cows on your land?
Yeah.
I wasn't aware of this.
Yeah,
Yes.
and they're like deer. They're deer cows.
Uh-huh.
They're these mini zebus. They're like native from South India, and they don't get very big. And they're just so sweet. Their nature, and it's yeah. I call them deer cows because they act like deer. They're like, and they look like deer a lot, the way they move and their mannerism. And I was just like really thinking about like how impactful it's been just having them on the property, in that like I've kept other pests before,
Yeah.
but these are generally viewed as food, and I used to eat them, when I was younger.
Yeah.
And it's so different having animals that are, at their food for majority of humans. Like it's common, I guess, what I'm saying. And to really get to know, like there's so much like distinct individual personality that they have.
Yes.
Similar to like our pet cats or other pets that we've kept, and really like developing this relationship with them. It's been process. They were really scared when they got there, disoriented, and they're getting used to us and our presence, and so I'm looking forward to cultivating that relationship as well. Yeah, I guess I don't know. I'm just speaking out loud, kind of what's happening for me. I don't know where I'm going with it or what's happening.
Well, I'm very enlivened and inspired by what you're sharing. It's news to me that you're engaged in cow protection, and it's a very win-win relationship. You and all your family members, I'm sure, are getting so much affection and upliftment from the cows. And I appreciate what you share about could you mention about scientists? Well, I'll mention. Srila Prabhupada, a few times, he mentions one of his college classmates, that would be like in the 19 teens and 1920s, more than 100 years ago. One of his college classmates named Jagadish Chandra Bose, who like Prabhupada knew personally. He was, and you can look this up on Wikipedia. He was the first scientist to demonstrate scientifically that like there's consciousness, plants have life and feelings and emotion. And he was doing that in the 1920s, 1930s. Of course, the Vedas say that from the timeless ages, from thousands and more than that years ago. And yeah, so back 100 years ago, Jagadish Chandra Bose, he created some instrument that could detect and measure the emotional, energetic emanations of plants. So, okay, now that's continuing. I'm reminded also this was back about 12 to 15 years ago. Well, okay, going back in January 2000, I published an article in the journal called Social Work, which is the most renowned journal in the field of social work. It's called Social Work. And the article was entitled Social Work and Speciesism, because I noticed in that field of social work, which is like, that's like the main profession that is protesting against the isms, sexism and racism, and okay, like that. So I did a whole literature search back in, in the 1990s, and I saw there was nothing in the social work literature that had anything about speciesism. So I wrote an article called Social Work and Speciesism, and I actually start with the founding mother of the social work profession. Her name is Jane Addams, and she was a wealthy, young, wealthy woman in Chicago, American aristocrat. She didn't have to work, and she went with her friends to Spain on some leisure vacation in the like 1860s, and they saw the bullfights. And Jane Addams was horrified by how they're treating the bulls. And then that moved her. She was transformationally impacted. She doesn't just want to live a superficial life of luxury. She wants to really help living entities to relieve their pain and suffering. And then she started really she became the mother of modern social work. She developed Whole House, which is the first social work agency that was there in Chicago. So I said, oh, maybe Jane Addams got it wrong. And then I said, because she was very sensitive to the pain that humans cause to like bulls and cows. And then about 15 years ago, I got because the social work and speciesism, it, each year more and more university courses are using it as required text. It's a text that the professors are using when they're looking at ethics and treatment of animals and ontology and things like that. So it's each year I check once, and more courses are using it as required reading. And so I became kind of like well known in the speciesism circle, but I didn't know I was well known. I didn't know it, and then I got contacted by someone, and this woman formed something called an organization called Social Work for Animals, and they said, "Oh, you're David Wolf. I finally found you on the internet." And, oh, but yeah, you wrote this article. Yeah, I wrote that. And then I didn't even know that it was like a thing, but it was a thing. And she said, "Well, we want you to be the president of this organization." And so I did not accept for a few reasons. I didn't consider it was my service at that juncture in life or now, but I completely gave my support. But part of our conversations there was because there was like in that social workers for animals, there was a big, like a yes, like a big vegan contingent and like that. And, but there was, many were, because the idea is that, yeah, because we don't want to do violence when we eat. And then I made the point, well, when we eat vegetables and fruit and grains, we're also doing some violence. And I cited Jagannath Chandra Bose and because they wanted to think in this organization that they weren't doing any violence, only those who are eating meat are doing violence. So Prabhupada often quotes the verse from the first canto of Bhagavatam, Jivo Jivasya Jivanam Ahastani Sastani Sastanam, that material world means one living entity is food for another, is food for another. So even when when we consume fruits and vegetables, we're doing some violence to the potato plant, the tomato plant, and so but they were challenged by that conception that there's also life in there too. So the principle is to minimize the violence we do. And let's say if we have a knife and a cow and a tomato, is it more violence to slit the throat of a cow or to slice a tomato? I think it's pretty obvious. I think it's pretty obvious. Of course, so the idea is to minimize violence. And one of those regulative principles that support us in self-realization is to not consume the results of gross violence with animals screaming in agony, the vegetarian or prasadam principle. Of course, sometimes we hear, well, you're doing violence too. And that's true. That's true. And I established that to the social workers for animals. I presented that contingent. But then less violent, just like, okay, there is life in the plant. And let's say the hypothetical scenario, let's say, okay, you're in your home and a terrible fire. Hare Krishna. Hypothetical, terrible fire. Everything's going to collapse. You're going down by, you have 10 seconds, and your choice is to save the dog or cat or your favorite plant. Just putting it out there. Thought exercises. It indicates, yes, there's life in the plant. I'm saying, because sometimes we hear, oh, well, if you're a vegetarian diet, you're doing violence too. It's true. Of course, we get into a prasadam diet, then that's the karma-free diet. We're not going to go there right now. But then we can say, but in those stavara, in those living entities that can move, well, then there's higher level of consciousness. Hare Krishna. Thanks for hearing. Sylvan.
Okay, since we've gone down that route, can you talk about roadkill?
Okay.
So there are lots of people around me who will collect dead animals from the road. So there's no intentional violence caused, and often the person who picks it up is not even
responsible for the death.
Even responsible for the death. Yeah. Well, I mean, certainly not directly, say.
Yeah.
Okay. So then, yeah. Can you talk about eating roadkill, considering, maybe in reference to slitting the tomato, and yeah, I'd like your thoughts, because I've gathered that you can't offer Krishna any meat.
Yeah.
And what about roadkill when there wasn't volition violence?
Thanks for that. It's an intelligent question as far as I'm concerned. It might not be an appealing question, but like that. Yeah, and there's the Vedas say, but Prabhupada will say, like, let's say if there's certain people and they want to eat the dead cow, say, okay, wait till the cow dies naturally. wait till the cow dies naturally, and then then the consumer is definitely less implicated in the pain and the suffering. Definitely. So whether it's a cow or roadkill, there's less karma involved in the pain and suffering that was caused. So it's a legitimate question. There still is karma because okay, so the roadkill or the cow dying naturally, and Prabhupada says if someone wants to eat cow, let the cow die naturally. The cow will die, and then you can eat the cow. It's not recommended, but it's less barbaric than the slaughterhouse. It's less barbaric than the slaughterhouse culture or anti-culture. Okay, and then now there's still whether it's roadkill or the cow dies, then there's still pain and suffering. And then one who consumes the meat, they're still implicated in that. There's still some karma there. And that's why sometimes Srila Prabhupada, he'll often say, we're not vegetarians, we're prashadarians. So that our commitment, or at least we strive to be committed to consume only prashadam. And as you indicated, Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Patram Pushpam Palam Tvayam Yome Bhakti Prayachati Tadaham Bhakti Paratam Ashtami Prayatatmanaha. That Krishna says, yeah, if one offers me with love and devotion, and the feeling, the love is the key part. And he mentions fruit, flower, leaf, water, non-meat boga or foodstuffs. So there's less karma in roadkill or letting the cow or the pig die naturally than if we do the killing. There's still karma involved that'll keep us entangled in the cycle. At the same time, there's something higher consciousness about it, relatively speaking. Yes. Mm.
Wouldn't you say, considering that plants are living entities, that by eating the dead matter of the cow that died naturally, it is saving the violence applied to plants?
Okay. I see there's a comment from Patrick who writes, my understanding is that devotees use the skin from cows that die naturally from mridanga drums, correct? And that is an acceptable practice to use the body after natural death, but not, of course, recommended to eat. Yeah, well, thanks for that parampara, Patrick. That, because whether the animal dies naturally, still we're consuming dead rotting flesh. So we can consider what's the effect on the consciousness. And yeah, it's, as George and Daniel are writing, it's food in ignorance, food in ignorance, and that affects the consciousness. And then again, in the prashadam process, then the spirit souls in the body of the plants that are offered with love and devotion to Krishna, they actually make spiritual advancement. Like they'll go, rather than going through millions of species, they'll go directly perhaps to a human form in a body where they get to engage in hearing transcendental vibration. And once we're involved in the laws of karma, whether this way or that way, then as Krishna says, he said, then it gets very, 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 very complex. We can say, okay, well, we're saving plants. At the same time, we're consuming we're consuming dead, rotting flesh. So that's going to have a result on consciousness that'll very likely lead to violence. So, yeah. Thank you, Sylvan. I appreciate the discussion. Any other comments or questions? Rosa.
Hare Krishna, nice to be here with everybody. I remember in approaching Bhakti and hearing things like Maya's false, I had some issues in the beginning thinking that material nature, Maya, was in discussion of like the world, the trees, the rivers, the mountains. Like, it's beautiful. What are we talking about? But you know, I learned that it was talking about our illusions of perceptions and how they're false. Is how Maya is described in material nature is God's nature, is God's presence and power and potency, and that helped me. And so in hearing this verse, I'm just reminded of that time. So when the verse says, "Oh yeah, you know, there'll be a time where you find God more attractive than the material nature." I just think to myself, I've cultivated such a love of, you know, like hiking and kayaking and going in the mountains and going in the forest because it's beautiful. It's God's nature. It's gorgeous, and I have such reverence. And to think that I could come to know something even more beautiful is very moving and very inspiring. And admittedly, you know, think I have little realization of this, but I am inspired, and I look forward to deepening that realization. And that's what came up for me in today's class. Thank you.
Thanks for sharing, Bhakti Rosa. From my point of view, that, yeah, it's like a major theme there to, yeah, respect and appreciate and be moved by nature, and move to deeper enthusiasm to experience, oh, what are spiritual trees and spiritual music. And because we can look in nature, it's so peaceful. No, it's not. It's not. It's all illusion. It's so peaceful. No, there's insects eating each other's bodies. This is the reality. Right? The animals are even like the tree, and the root system of the trees are fiercely competing for that drop of water. It's jivo, jivasya, jivanam. So, but there's the appearance. And to be attracted to nature, that's sattvic. It's sattvic. And at the same time, we don't want to fall into like the sattvic trap, to let nice sattvic, it's not like prepared to be attracted to the financial district. Of course, it might be our service to be attracted to the financial district, or be attracted to the pub where people just kind of drink and get drunk, or different types of. So it's completely sattvic. And then the danger of sattva is we become complacent and we don't go tivrena bhakti yogena yajeta pusha. We don't go to more and more intensity to engage in the original nature of the soul, devotional service to God. Hare Krishna. Anandini.
Hare Krishna. I appreciate this conversation about nature a lot.
Yeah.
And recently I heard Srila Prabhupada say in a class that by studying nature, we can come to Krishna consciousness. We can understand Krishna by studying nature. And as you're speaking about, well, let's say the downside or the less beautiful side of nature.
Yeah.
So we can study that, but also we can study the beauty of it, and as you said at the beginning, like the nature we see is just a spark of Krishna's splendor. And yeah, I am meditating on and also experimenting with how nature responds when we interact with her. And that is quite amazing. Like, so she's not just like, okay, dead. By interacting with nature or with Mother Earth, then a lot of beauty will come. Like she will respond with abundance, and I'm experiencing that in my garden, in front of my home, and also how so last summer I saw a bee, a special bee in the garden of a friend, and I said, wow, I want this bee in my garden too. And she said, okay, I'll give you a flower. I'll give you a flower, and this flower attracts the bee. And so she gave me this flower, and after a few months, actually, this bee appeared in my garden. And to me, it was like a miracle, because all around there's agriculture fields. There's nothing that attracts the bees, and it's like hundreds of kilometers. But somehow or other, this bee knew, okay, here's this flower, I can go there into the garden. And I understood, oh, this is how Paramatma works. That's the explanation. That's how the bee knew where to go to find this clary sage flower. Yeah, so I am very inspired by nature and to learn about Krishna and all of the philosophy by interacting with nature.
Thank you, Anandini.
And I have a question also.
Yes, yes.
Because you were speaking about, so nature is whose nature is it? It's Krishna's nature, and so
Sure.
there's the material nature,
Yeah.
and then there's the spiritual nature. So also we have our material nature and we have our spiritual nature. And could you speak a little on how we can understand our own spiritual nature through our material nature?
Through our material nature. Okay.
Yes.
Sure. Okay. Well, we can look materially. Okay. So my body is always materially. We're always seeking happiness. Whether like, oh, this job will make me happy, this relationship will make me happy. We're seeking happiness. All right. So that's like that's an indication. Spiritual as spiritual beings, we're naturally seeking happiness. Anandamayo Bhyasat. Right now, we're trying to do it through matter, and we're frustrated lifetime after lifetime. We're always seeking knowledge. Right? We're seeking. That's why we go to the university. Read the sports page. Who won the game? Yeah. What's the stock market doing? We're seeking knowledge. Oh, it's the nature. It's because it's my spiritual nature. Right now, it's pervertedly reflected through material seeking knowledge. My nature is to seek knowledge. We're seeking to not die. We're seeking to be deathless. If someone comes to us with a knife or a gun, we're going to fight or we're going to run because we don't want to die. Because that's our nature. That's our spiritual nature, to be deathless. We're going to serve. Right? We're going to serve our life partner, serve our society, serve. Yeah, we're going to serve my belly. We're going to serve some ideology. We're always going to serve. Because that's the spiritual nature, to serve and to seek happiness, deathlessness, cognizance, knowledge. So those are some examples. We can just see what we do materially, and that indicates the spiritual nature. It's just kind of like a shadow reflection in the material sphere.
Okay. Yeah, and more concrete in the sense I was thinking of. So there's the specific, well, the Varna Ashram Dharma. So there's the specific like life sections.
Yeah.
And then there's this, we have, our body is gifted with a certain propensity.
We have a particular psychophysical nature.
Yes. So I was thinking of that nature, like the nature of our, what we're gifted, our psychophysical nature. How can that support us to understand or to come to understanding of our spiritual nature?
Well, okay, that's called Devi Varnashram. Devi means that we engage our psychophysical nature. We're to protect cows, to protect people, to engage in business, to engage in intellectual, philosophical work, to to build houses. We engage our psychophysical nature, contribute to society, and engage it in a way that's dovetailed with bhakti. And then we use the psychophysical nature in one sense. We use our psychophysical nature in an organic, healthy way that supports us to transcend our psychophysical nature and to realize ultimately, I'm not this car. Ultimately, I'm not the psychophysical nature. That's the science of Devi Varnashram. Devi indicates divine, God, Krishna consciousness. So we use our psychophysical nature so we're not frustrated and we're in some occupation or career where we're miserable. We use our psychophysical nature in a way that's dovetailed to service to the root of the tree, to God, and then gradually we cultivate spiritual realization of who I am as as a spirit soul, not the body, and servant to Krishna. And that's the whole science. Whatever one's psychophysical nature, that there's a science of how to dovetail it in Krishna's service.
And then naturally we come to realization of it, of what it means to be a spirit soul.
Exactly. Some endeavors in my lifetime, I have some propensity for intellectual processing and service and speculation and all of that. Okay, so I used it. My PhD dissertation is about studying the effects of chanting mantra on relieving stress. So, like, that's my propensity. I have some propensity towards psychology and transformational seminars and endeavoring to engage that in ways where I realize who I am as not the body, not this mind. So yeah, to engage our propensities in bhakti, and then we get realization who we are, spirit, soul, servant of Krishna.
Thank you. And I have one more question to that, because I was in a conversation with someone about where is the line from karma yoga to bhakti yoga, and like, so specifically, if I'm, let's say I work as a teacher,
Yeah.
I do this as my service in the world, and also I endeavor to do it for Krishna. I won't be able to remember Krishna at every moment, because I might be explaining maths or grammar or whatever. So I was saying, well, it's not about the every moment remembrance. It's more like, where am I? What's my consciousness in um how I structure my day and my week and my month. Yet I'm curious what you would say.
Well, thank you. Well, I wouldn't really relate to the term line. It's a continuum, and it's quite a broad continuum. It's a continuum. It's not like here's the line. That's the way I see it.
Uh-huh.
So, for example, on, let's call it the low side of the continuum, it's karma yoga. Now, first of all, there's a distinction between karma yoga and karma. Karma is just I'm doing some work, and there's no yoga, there's no self-realization, there's no God consciousness. And then it's just karma, it's not karma yoga. But then on the low side of the karma yoga continuum, let's say that someone does their job, and maybe it's an good karma job. Let's take it to even someone works in a slaughterhouse, something terrible. Okay, whatever. So just someone works some job, and it's not about self-realization or God. I get my money, and okay, but they donate some of the income to their local church or synagogue or bhakti yoga center, assuming that the bhakti yoga center, church, synagogue, or mosque actually uses it in God's service. That's karma yoga. That's karma yoga. Okay. And then, okay, then as we go, then more and more, just like, oh, here I am. Yeah, okay, okay, so my fellow employees, let me bring them some prasad. And then it's like, then it's more towards bhakti. Okay, okay, yeah, let me, okay, so I'm a teacher. So let me integrate the eternal principles of Bhagavad Gita in an intelligent way, using discretion, into my teaching, into my conversations with my supervisor. Okay, then it's more and more along the way. And then okay, and then maybe more and more I'm getting realization tesham satata yutanam bhajatam pradipurvakam tadami buddhi yogam damyena mamu piyanti te. I'm getting more and more realization how to engage my natural psychophysical nature in a way that that's actually dovetailed with bhakti for myself and others, through the philosophy, through the prashadam, through transcendental sound vibration. And then let's say, and then then it's like completely bhakti yoga, where it's kind of like I don't even care about my psychophysical nature. I'm just enthusiastic to serve God, and whether it's something aligned with my psychophysical nature or not, I'm just doing this 100% in service to God, and I'm not doing it for any reciprocation, profit, adoration, distinction, popularity. Then it becomes completely bhakti. And I just gave like a few maybe major junctions, but it's quite a broad continuum with a lot of gradations.
Mm, thank you for that. Well, there's this term that Srila Prabhupada often uses, which is occupational duty.
Mm-hmm.
So would that be I fulfill my occupational duty to the moment where where I'm engaged maybe in a more direct service to Krishna, and it might mean giving up my occupational duty.
Yeah. Yeah, I like how you said that. And that's now, if we give it up prematurely, it can become the proverbial spiritual bypass. I'll just do everything for Krishna, but it's artificial, and then we're not happy or satisfied. But then, yeah, as we get more and more towards bhakti, it's just like, yeah, I'm ready to do anything for Krishna, whether it's aligned with my nature or not, in a real way. As the heart becomes more and more bhakti immersed.
Thank you. I have more questions, but I'll leave space to others.
Thank you, Anandini. Thanks for sharing.
I do have another question, actually.
Sylvan.
And my question is regarding realizations. So, when you were presenting the program earlier, before we went on to animal and farm, I was considering, okay, a lot of the way I live actually is sort of appears to be in line with bhakti.
Yeah.
And actually, I'll mention, if in spite of my questions around meat eating, I haven't eaten meat for decades, and I don't eat roadkill either, or I'm just not interested.
Mm-hmm.
To eat it myself.
You
But
were asking in a spirit of philosophical inquiry. I get it.
yes, and also for all around me, people, there are
Yeah.
all sorts of meat eaters around me. Anyway, my question was, okay, so my life has got some, could appear to be in line with bhakti, and yet there is a connection that I can't make and I can't force it, and that is realization of the personality of Godhead, which there's no bhakti if there isn't the personality of Godhead. And how does that get realized? I hear you and it all makes sense when you talk about it. And yeah, well, it's all very well, it makes sense. And, you know, like who's created this flower, the painter, you know, when it's on the canvas, oh yeah, well, that must be a genius. And then when it's in the garden, it just happened. Um, Fine, it makes sense that a there is a an artist behind that.
Mm.
And I have no realization of that artist. I've just got intellectual understanding from having listened to you. So how is that realization? How can that realization actually come?
Thank you, Sylvan. I appreciate your comment, sharing, and question. Thanks for that. Um, I'm certainly not here to claim that I have much realization of the personality of Godhead either, as described in these verses we read today. And so, okay, so the intellectual realization that's a start, and I'm speaking to you and to me and to everyone here. That's a start. Krishna says in that 10th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, one who understands the greatness of the creation, then they come to serve me. They come to serve me with devotion. And, and so, and that's where one thing the pure devotee spiritual master, Srila Prabhupada, in my instance, is important. We serve someone who is in intimate relationship with the personality of Godhead, and then we get more more realization. So as far as the epistemology, how we know, just like so the more we serve, then Krishna, the personality of Godhead, reveals themselves to us the more we serve. Just like and I know we've used this example before, if I want to know you or you want to know me or any of us want to know each other in an intimate way, if I tried in just some aloof way to analyze you, maybe I get some superficial information. But if I really want to know you, the process is, and Krishna says this, he says to Arjuna, Bhaktosi me sakachiti rasyam yeta uttamam. He says, because you're my devotee and my friend, therefore I'm revealing myself to you. So when we gain each other's love and trust, then we reveal ourselves more and more intimately. Then we get to know each other as people. And so applying that process of gaining love and trust to the Supreme Person, that's called bhakti. And the more that we give ourselves to that, then the more the Supreme Person reveals themselves to us. So there's the intellectual, like, yeah, well, it kind of makes sense. Okay, that's a beginning. And then as we engage in bhakti, including Bhagavatam discussions like this, chanting the names of the Supreme Person, following the regulative principles that purify the consciousness, then the Supreme Person reveals themselves to us more and more. That's the process.
Hmm. Yes, thank you, David. That too makes sense. And yes, there is more doubt, and my doubt is around the capacity for the mind to create stories
Hmm.
either way. And that includes especially my own, and therefore, you know, it's like the internet, like Googling on the internet. If you Google not red table, all that will come is red tables. Yeah, and so it's the same, you know, how can I, if I keep informing my mind about, you know, basically brainwashing myself with personality of Godhead, of course, of course, that's the principle of brainwashing. I will come to believe that there is this personality of Godhead, and then I'll make sure that everything in my life fits the design that my mind has created, which is what I've spent my life doing, and I've had enough of that, and so I don't want to continue to go back to doing that.
Thank you, Sylvan. I appreciate what I regard as healthy skepticism. So then, so this process, this is transcognitive. It's transmental, meaning, okay, there's our mind can do things and play tricks and illusion, and we just want to reinforce our belief system and be right, and yeah, that's what the mind does and what the ego does. And the nature of the self is chit potency. The nature of the self is naturally full of knowledge. And so that's why this realization that comes from engaging in bhakti, it really pierces through the layers of mind and intellect. It can be reinforced by mind and intellect, but it's not dependent on those faulty ways of knowing. So the nature of the self is chit potency. As a material example, Prabhupada often uses, let's say let's say someone's serving us a meal, and then at some point, I'm full. Would you like more? I'm full. I'm full. So, well, how do you know that you're full? Can you prove it? It's just like, look, I have a direct, the belly is full. So similarly, this knowledge that comes from engaging in bhakti, it's Krishna says, Prajakshavatka, it's directly experienced. Then the soul transcendental to whatever the mind is saying or not saying, the soul experiences fullness. So I'm just putting that out there, that it's the nature of the soul to be filled in knowledge, and that's transmental, transcognitive. Anandini wrote, I wish I had Sylvan's urgency to realize the Supreme Personality of Godhead beyond the mind and any brainwash. I am reminded of George Harrison. I really want to see you, Lord. I really want to know you. Thanks for that. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Srimad Bhagavatam ki. Srila Prabhupada ki. Thank you all for your association. Hare Krishna.